Welcome to MLA Voices, the podcast that delves into the world of the Master of Liberal Arts at the Johns Hopkins University. I'm your host, Tristan Cabello, Associate Director of the MLA, and in each episode of this podcast, we welcome a different alum to share their experiences, challenges, and successes within the program. Join us as we explore the diverse perspectives and insights that our alumni bring to the table. Whether you're a current student, a fellow alum, or simply interested in liberal arts, tune in and discover the voices that have shaped and been shaped by the MLA program at Hopkins. And today I'm joined by Carlos Littles. Carlos graduated in 2021 from the Master of Liberal Arts. Hi, Carlos. How are you doing?
Doing well. How about you?
Very good. So it's very good to have you on the podcast, Carlos. And I'd like to start right away with asking you the same question that I've asked other people on the podcast. Really is an introduction. Who are you? Can you share more about your background and also the reasons why you decided to enroll in the Master of Liberal Arts?
Sure. So education's always been a really big part of my upbringing. Um, my father and I, we built a library really for us to um, just hang out. I would be able to do my homework in there. I was also in the International Baccalaureate program through middle school all the way through high school. So that program was built around trying to challenge students to think globally. That was a little bit more difficult with the maths and sciences.
Yeah,
And
sure.
the way that they bridged that was that they used social science.
Yeah,
So they would use ancient history and other contemporary cultures
yeah,
foreign from ours and try to use those to get us to think about how other people would solve the same problem that we're facing. Um, and I was a little weird as a kid, so in that way, with my librarian stuff,
uh-huh.
um, I was able to there's this big book that my dad always had.
Yeah,
Um, and I just asked him to read it to me because I couldn't reach it for one, but two, I didn't really get a lot of the things. And a couple of years later, I found out that that book was Plato's Republic. So I annoyed teachers and many of my classmates with all of this ancient philosophy. Um, but in elementary school, this is sort of where my pathway sort of changed and went really deeply into academia.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and that was where we were doing this a similar interdisciplinary thing where we are supposed to do engineering and some history, philosophy. We were supposed to find figures and have them answer questions on current events.
Mhm.
We were challenged to do marionettes in doing that, so we had to do some crafting. And I chose the Dalai Lama,
Uh-huh.
and that is where I started to read those books more in depth for myself, and
Yeah,
that really pushed me on
yeah.
into personal uh, reflection and reading.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, beautiful. And can you share a little bit more about also your goals in enrolling in the Master of Liberal Arts? I mean, everybody has different backgrounds. Everybody has different interest in the Master of Liberal Arts, and
Mhm.
so I'd like to hear more about what were your own goals and how has the program influenced your views on the liberal arts?
Sure. So because of that background, when I got through high school, I felt that the next step, whatever I did, needed to give me space to
Yeah,
stretch my legs in a way, because I was so used to my entire worldview was that learning should be not simply, and it may be still the case now, but challenge rather than going hyper specific in a very specific field and that being sort of tunnel vision in a way.
hmm,
I needed to be able to bridge that because my entire learning pathway was that I learned things through other things. Does that make sense?
hmm, yeah, of course, yeah, hmm,
So I really needed a space to do that, and I went to ODU first, and that's where I was able to double major in philosophy and history, and I
yeah,
was able to then bridge things there. And I recognized pretty early on that the concepts were sort of the same, the content just differed. Um, so coming from ODU, I was looking for a space again where I could possibly maybe merge those two. And the liberal arts at the MLA at Hopkins really came into vision, and I knew that that had to be where I could grow.
Yeah. And can you share? There's probably many of those in your career in the MLA program, but can you share maybe one course, one event, one book, one author that you studied in the MLA program that really significantly impacted your career
Um,
or your
well,
thinking or your intellectual vision?
right. So I went into this uh, thinking with the course catalog. I was thinking that it may be studying Black figures, in which I hadn't had the opportunity to do so in high school in depth, or really have a pathway to do that in undergrad.
Yeah,
But it ended up being my what is history class, and learning what the production of history is like. It's sort of like understanding that once you become an adult, that everyone's still winging it. Um,
yeah,
this
yeah,
this production that historians sort of unfortunately have, in some ways, have made themselves inaccessible
yeah, 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 yeah,
to
yeah,
to the common person,
yeah,
and maybe making the field also inaccessible, or maybe
yeah, absolutely.
something could be done away with.
Yeah.
Um, Using that, I mean, especially now that I'm faculty now
Uh-huh.
at Virginia State, that's making it so um, some of these pathways, and also try to discourage my students from being opaque in
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah,
reading.
yeah.
But not only that, but understanding the fact that we've always it's a social science, and we've been driven
Mhm,
by social norms and social cues, and
mhm.
all these other different mechanisms that
Yeah,
we put up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and for our listeners here, I just wanted to mention that What is History is one of the core courses that you can take in the program, and it's offered every year. So it's a course that's offered on a very regular basis. One questions that we often get as students, and I mean, I was also a student in the liberal arts, but the question that my friends and my mother or my parents were always asking is, what are you doing this for? What are the skills that you are going to acquire in this program? Can you talk a little bit more about yeah, the skills, the knowledge that you acquired in this program, and how you have applied them to your professional career?
Um, sure. Well, it's not simply. I know the way I speak, it may seem as though it's a lot about relating to foreign concepts
Hmm.
and then making magic out of it, which again is a skill in itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But it to me, it reaffirmed um, the skill was more so one an
yeah.
internal skill in
Hmm.
terms of honing a deep belief and a deep affirmation of the power of the academy to actually make change, whether for good or bad, but
Yeah,
making change in itself and socially in communities.
yeah,
So those skills, because again, I've always wanted to be in academia, given my background. This idea that even the more modest things that may seem insignificant to people at the time, like
yeah.
uh, imagining the impact of E.P. Thompson then and now,
Hmm.
things like that, have really emboldened me to
Yeah,
stay steadfast in the face of certain things that are going on around the country
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in terms
Sure.
of uh, looking at academics as these
Yeah, and you kind
closed
of
off
touch,
people.
yeah, and you kind of touch on this a little bit, but in the program, it's true that social justice is a recurring theme. I mean, we always link the liberal arts to social justice in all of the courses that we offer. Um, can you talk a little bit more about how that worked for you? What role do you think the liberal arts or a liberal arts education play in understanding and advocating for social justice?
I think it's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, of course.
If nothing else, in the wake of the pandemic era that we're
Yeah, yeah,
in,
yeah,
and still continue to have afterlives with, and certain things like RSV. Um, the fact that certain communities may not be getting the certain things that they need to thrive and be safe.
yeah,
Um, those things can't really be looked at without having, some experience or some brushing up against liberal arts education or proponents of liberal arts education. Um, it the things from that I'm learning from Plato, the Dalai Lama, Angela Davis, Rushdie. Without those uh, tenets that come from them, um, I feel that the fact that someone's experience could be a valid point, becomes under fire from
yeah,
some people. It
of course.
gets
Yeah,
completely walled off.
yeah,
So we go into camps, and this only heightened with Trumpism and the
yeah.
conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, and
Mm-hmm.
how social media has rolled into this thing where I don't really need an education. I can just look it up on my phone, or
Mm-hmm.
um, there's an assumption of that's truly it, the assumption of knowledge that can really, I feel, can really only be
Yeah,
examined through an actual, um, wanting to learn and eagerness to hear someone else's perspective before I make a rash decision, or before I come to a judgment on something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if we're talking with justice, we know that justice looks different to different people,
Of
through different
course.
lenses. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually searching for a an avenue of justice, I have to listen to someone else.
Yeah, 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 sure. Yeah, yeah, of course. If you could go back to your very first semester in the MLA program, um, or if you could talk to a student who just entered the MLA program and it's their first semester, what kind of advice would you give them? What did you wish you had known that you didn't know entering the program?
I would say, um, I definitely say, to if you feel that you are more of a hermit and you're, don't really want to talk to your classmates, do
Hmm.
that. Please do that. Use all the avenues that you can to learn from your cohort,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I was I'm not sure if this would be a traditional student given our cases, but I know that I've had, many in my cohort were older than myself, and they had different life
Yeah,
experience. They live in different places. They maybe come from
yeah,
different countries,
yeah.
and they all had different careers before they came to the MLA.
Hmm.
And while my pathway was really focused on history and philosophy, it could only be emboldened by, someone's career,
Yeah,
that they had lived. Their
yeah,
lived experience
yeah,
really was able to add to those discussions that we had. Um, Graduate studies is really a lot about what you learn from other people
yeah,
alongside what you're learning
yeah,
in
yeah.
the classroom with your professor. So, um,
Yeah, yeah, and that's I'm really glad you pointed this out because I always tell students, I mean, really you are learning as much from each other than you're learning from me, even maybe probably more. You're learning more from each other than you're learning from me. I mean, it's very important that you guys talk and exchange ideas in the classroom. And even though the program is mainly virtual, mainly online, there's many avenues, I think, to do that in the MLA program. And
yes.
so, one last question that I have for you, Carlos, but it's very simple. I mean, how do you think the program has changed you? How do you feel you've grown since you completed the Master of Liberal Arts?
With everything, into account, all of the I know I was, my pathway was a little bit more speedy than everyone else's,
Hmm.
um, but I was really able to gain, a great group of, colleagues,
Yeah,
that I still am in contact with. I can still, when I have questions, can, I can get those questions answered pretty quickly.
yeah, yeah,
So for me, as a, former hermit, being able
yeah.
to, come out of my shell in a bit and actually exchange ideas professionally.
Yeah.
That's really helped me in my current profession
Yeah.
now, so that I can also use these fundamental keys in interdisciplinary studies where I now teach a lot of non-majors. So
Mhm, mhm.
I'm able to relate things in a way that seemingly are coming pretty easily now that I have the skills to relate these things that were perhaps foreign
Yeah.
my time in the MLA to these undergrads who
Yeah.
may or
Yeah.
may not be as interested because it's not their
Mhm.
major class. Um, and it's been really exciting. It's been really rewarding.
Uh, yeah, the ability to translate complex
Yes.
ideas, right, to make them understandable to undergrads. I mean, it's yeah, it's a skill in itself, right? So, Carlos, thank you so much for sharing your experience in the MLA program. I'm sure that a lot of students are going to be very interested by everything that you said. So thank you very much. And I want to tell also our listeners that we publish those podcast episodes every other week. So please do stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.